All right, starting things off, joining us now to talk about the D3 scene. We're going to talk today about some guys that we think have a really good chance to make it to the next level, play a little bit of pro ball. Is Jimmy Martin. What's up, man? How are you doing?
It is fantastic to be back. It's been way too long since I've done the show. And Toby, this is like one of my favorite things that I do. So it's just great to be back. It's awesome.
I'm right with you, dude. Whenever we get to do this is awesome. Having you back on here is great. And now it's just on us to find more entertaining stuff to talk about all year. This week, though, kind of a layup, talking about some guys that we think have what it takes to make it to the next level. D3 guys don't have a great success story in the draft in recent history, but that doesn't mean that there aren't players at that level. Just a lot of those opportunities coming in the days that follow, whether it be UDFA deals or guys going and playing in other leagues and getting a chance in the offseason. Yeah, so I definitely don't want to make it seem like, hey, this is a list of like guys that are locks to get drafted. Like, we're realistic over here. We understand that doesn't happen a ton. With that being said, do we think it's a possibility that, one or multiple of these guys gets taken off that board? Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like on draft day, sometimes like you'll have like a late round, like 6th, 7th round. Just like you have this. Some GMs just have like this gut feeling sometimes. Like take a risk on a guy and it pays off big time. Like for example, like Quinn Minor. What was he, like a 4th rounder, maybe 3rd? Like I was just a little bit earlier, but like if a GM sees someone he likes, he's not going to care what school he played. He's going to pick him. So
absolutely.
You know what the old phrase is? It's like if you're really good, they'll find you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it, dude. That's the line used by everyone for like D3, D2 NAIA sports. Like if you can play, like they'll find you. It doesn't matter where you're at, and it's true. To a certain extent, it totally is true. Let's start things off with a guy that has done it at a very high level for a very long time for a team that's won a hell of a lot of games. Braxton Plunk from Mount Union, man, a quarterback who, has certainly had some really great weapons around him. We'll talk about one of them later on, but he has done a phenomenal job for the Purple Raiders. What have you seen from him?
I mean, the thing I see with Braxton Plunk's consistency, I mean, this kid was just lighting up the scoreboard for years and years and years. What did he start, 3 years, 4 years over there? Like, and I mean, you look at it like he had a good year this year, but he had even better years in previous seasons. Like, he had 33 touchdowns this year passing, I believe. He eclipsed 300 plus yards of passing in every game besides the last game of the season. He only threw like 8 picks. So he didn't really turn the ball over, and that's obviously like a really critical part of being a quarterback is like being able to keep your team in the game by not turning the ball over, not just always making plays. I think that's something I kind of pointed out from his game. Like he did not make a lot of mistakes. And I think that's really, really critical as a quarterback. And I think if I'm a GM, I'm gonna look at this kid. I'm like, okay, doesn't turn the ball over, wins football games, like even not even the NFL. What about like the CFL, USFL, XFL?
Absolutely.
Any opportunity for
UFL now, right?
UFL, yeah, pardon me. Yeah,
there you go. I made the same mistake earlier already.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, it goes without saying as well. All these guys we talk about, we might be missing some guys. Like there's totally guys that we could be completely missing or not. So if you're watching this right now and you're like a big D3 prospect and you're like making a move, like we don't talk about you, like
come at us. We deserve it. Like
come at us. Yes, please. We are not like full disclosure. Like we are not like making this. These are the only guys. No.
No, for sure. And you look at a guy like Plunk, and you talk about, he's got weapons around him, but it takes a certain player, a certain caliber of player to get the most out of those guys, right? We'll talk about Wayne Ruby later. Wayne Ruby is not the same player without a Braxton Plunk throwing him the ball out of the backfield. Yeah, he's still going to have a prolific career over there, but those two and the dynamic they've been able to establish together, the rapport that they have, is something that we have not seen very often at the D3 level alone, but really in any level, right? And you talk about, again, the clip at which that he was able to accomplish all these things just this last season, man. You're looking at multiple, not only school records, but Division III records in terms of passing touchdowns, passing yards, completions. Like, he has the stats and the numbers to back it up. Obviously, being from a smaller school is going to be a knock on him on anybody's board or kind of scouting report. But, man, like, 158 passing touchdowns and over 14,500 passing yards for a guy that has played a lot of meaningful football in deep playoff runs and national championship type stages. Like, you can't do much better. And if you can, we haven't seen it.
Yeah. And I mean, you look back to what I said earlier, consistency. This is just a model of consistency. And being only 6 foot, 180 pounds also is like maybe I'm also 6 foot, 180 pounds. Like, I mean, I'm not ripping on guys that are only 6 feet tall, but like, it could hurt his draft stock. I mean, and his chances a little bit, but like, I'm not one to say like, oh, like if you're this size, you can't play. Like, no, absolutely not. But
Yep.
I'm saying maybe for like the GMs potentially, but I mean, I don't know. I would obviously love to see this kid get a shot. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why he can't maybe get some sort of look. I don't really know what he's doing like personally. I haven't really looked through like his like social media, like his plans or what he wants to do. But I think it's worth it. If you want to like give it a shot, like you may as well.
That is a great point too with a lot of these guys. Like, you're not hearing it from us that they're declaring for anything. These are guys that, from covering the season that we think, hey, these guys have a legit shot to go and play potentially the next level if that's what they choose to do. This is not we're not breaking news on anybody's intentions professionally or otherwise. But I certainly hear you there. He was a semifinalist for the Glardy Trophy. Talk about an All-American caliber player, all-region. Obviously, some of those accolades come with that. Offensive back of the year in the OAC. Like, he has all the hardware and things to back up a lot of those stats. We'll talk about a guy that he faced off against quite a few times, I think, especially you talk about those playoff trips, and a guy that you think potentially has the best chance out of all these guys, that being D'Angelo Hardy from North Central, the wide receiver that has the ability, playmaking-wise, the frame, and a lot of the intangibles that if you're a squad at the next level, you got to be looking for.
So obviously, we covered a couple of North Central games in the regular season. We talked about him in, like, shows like this, like, oh, he had X, Y, and Z yards, he had catches, blah, blah, blah. Forget the stats.
Yeah.
In a playoff game, he had a receiving touchdown, a return touchdown, a passing touchdown, I believe, as well. Do I stand corrected on that?
Yes.
Like, the versatility is what stands out to me with D'Angelo Hardy. Like, obviously, 75 catches, 1,300 yards, 20 touchdowns. Great. You can put this kid up nearly anywhere on offense, and he's going to make your team better. Like, that is what I think sets him apart from like the other like prospects, if you will, in Division 3. Is like, you put this kid outside, you put him in the slot, you put him in the backfield, you can have him return kicks.
Special teams, I'll say special teams is going to be a big part of his way, hopefully, to make it onto a roster.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. For a Division 3 guy to be able to already have proven yourself on special teams in college, obviously, you have to do it in once you get to the next level as well. But like these scouts are going to know it. He can do everything. Like, so that's where I stand with D'Angelo Hardy. I mean, obviously we saw him play live for that game where he scored 4 touchdowns, 4 different ways. So I mean, I don't know if that's ever been done. We'd have to look at. It's hard to imagine.
We say it right as it goes on. You're talking, there's a kick return from the national championship just 2 years ago and takes that to the crib, and that's to open up the biggest game of the year. And that's just something that doesn't matter the stage for him. Like you said, all the accolades and things aside, like when you see this guy in person and see the way he plays, not only does he have that playmaking ability, we saw him just straight up bullying kids against a lacrosse defense that, maybe struggled at points during the year. They kind of relied on that firepower offensively with their big-time playmakers. That doesn't take away from that defense at all. They had some playmakers on that D. Did not matter to Hardy. He was out there bullying kids, whether he had the ball or not, by the way. It was a great, did some great perimeter blocking and things too. And it felt like he's kind of the football equivalent of like a 5-tool player type deal, if you will.
Yeah. That's a perfect comparison.
Thank you.
I can't even say much more else. Like, you think about like, so if talking about like versatility, I'm going to throw like a baseball comparison right now. D'Angelo Hardy is like the Ronald Acuna of Division 3 football. And if you're not familiar with Ronald Acuna, our audience, he is like a 5-tool player. He's like a really good hitter. He steals bases. He hits home runs. Plays pretty good defense. Can throw 100 miles an hour from the outfield. Like, you know what I mean? So this is kind of, you bring any bells right now? It's just like guys that can like do everything. That's D'Angelo Hardy. So.
Yep. Absolutely, man. You talk about, I mentioned kind of the frame earlier and some of the physical tangibles that he has going for him. He's 6'2", 197 right now, got a good frame, and he's, again, see the dude in person, that's 197 with a little bit of room there, right? Like, he has some room to even fill that out potentially even more and put more weight on if that's what a team sees that maybe they address as a need for him. But big enough to go up and play that jump ball, quick enough to be an efficient route runner, seems relatively proficient in a lot of different aspects of that route tree over there. And once again, a guy who's got a really solid quarterback throwing him the ball out of the backfield. Does not hurt, but he certainly makes the most out of it. His career high was on against Carroll. I think it's worth mentioning. 278 receiving yards, 4 tuds on 7 catches.
It's like Randy Moss on Thanksgiving. Dude.
That is absurd, dude.
He's like turning around the camera, like he's got his Gatorade bottle, you know.
On 7 catches. But that's just what he did this last year. 20 touchdowns, over 1,300 yards receiving, and like we said, some of those coming in some really big moments in the playoffs, a lot of which against that lacrosse team that had him on the ropes for quite a while. He was the catalyst that got North Central kind of out of some of those predicaments. But we can move over to a man that he was playing on that day. Let's talk about Mike Pya from lacrosse, and not a skill position guy. We'll talk about a few guys that aren't in that realm. So trust me, we kind of look all over. These are just guys from kind of all over the place. But tell me what you've seen from him. He's a guy that is training up here in Marquette at Advantage, so been familiar with that, but also followed their team through the season pretty proactively.
Yeah, you know, like obviously being at Stout, I had an opportunity to get ready for the lacrosse game and like watch film and everything. And I obviously just like looking through. I normally just watch like the defense, but for the purposes of like just my curiosity, I wanted to watch the lacrosse's offense as well because you know you got guys there, Studer, because like I'm just a football guy. I just like watching film. You know? Like I don't know.
Big time.
But I'm like watching this film. I'm like, who is this like pancake machine? This guy is just killing everybody. I'm like, who is this? And then obviously I come to find this guy is like gonna get a shot, maybe get a pro day. Like I'm like, makes sense. That man being Michael Pya. I mean, and I think he's made a great decision going up to Marquette to train with Coach Branch. And he's in the right hands there at Advantage. So shout out to Branch if you're tuning in. I doubt it, but hey, if you are, that's great. I would love it. I would love it, baby. I would love it. But Shay, Branch, I miss you, man.
And talk about this guy, man. Some of the accolades. Yeah, I wish we had a pancake counter so we can give you that stat because that'd probably be a pretty interesting one. There's one right there that was pretty absurd. But a 2-time D3 All-American, a 3-time first-team All-Conference player over there in the WIAC. 46 consecutive starts for this guy over there for the Eagles, man. That is probably the most impressive stat of them all.
Yeah, I would say that especially like being in the WIAC, like, I mean, that doesn't happen a whole lot. Like starting 46 games, like, you know, typically like, because, you know, Division III is a little bit different because you have gray shirts instead of red shirts. Like, I mean, so gray shirts, like, don't practice at all. And then, like, they just lift, like, whatever. Then oftentimes, like, you'll gray shirt, like, a really, really good freshman so you can save them for longer. Or, like, you keep guys for scout team and whatever. If you're playing as a freshman, like, anywhere for that matter, but, like, in Division III, but in the WIAC especially, like, what does that mean? What does that say about the kid? I mean, that's impressive. That is really, really wildly impressive. Because there's some like really good players that have only started like 1 or 2 years in the WIAC. Like you take a guy like Mitch Wecker, for example, our starting quarterback last year. Kid was unbelievable. He had like a phenomenal season this year, but unfortunately he's behind another really good player. So it just goes to show you that some guys only get like their chance every once in a while. And obviously Pya really, really took advantage of his with 46 starts, and now he set himself up for an opportunity to play professionally. So.
Yeah, and a big thing for him is going to be his versatility on the line of scrimmage. 6'3", 305, not a frame for an offensive lineman NFL-wise that jumps off the charts, but one that certainly can be workable. You talk about interior offensive linemen. So I think for him, that's probably something he's stressing right now, going up to whatever pro day or kind of evaluation he's got coming up next. Obviously, you need to test well. That's a big thing, especially when you're talking about those interior offensive linemen, your ability to get outside run plays and other deals. But his versatility is going to be a big part of that. Can he move around in the offensive line? Does he have the football IQ to adapt to that kind of scheme and play in some situations maybe where he's a little more unfamiliar? Who knows, man? He's got the accolades. He has the track record. Super excited to see where he ends up, dude. But we'll move on and to a guy that we've sponsored here on the show, another offensive lineman. This one, very familiar with that inside line play. Talk about Gerard Thornton over there, another man playing over on the Cardinals in North Central.
Yeah. I mean, this guy. So another interesting thing. So I see all these accolades. I see, you know, like he won these awards. The thing that impressed me the most, obviously, like his play, but the way he like walked around the sideline and the way he like demanded the attention of the room, and he didn't even. Here's the thing: he didn't even need to demand it. He just like his presence was just known all the time in that locker room. That's just what I observed from that game, being on the sidelines. watching that, because that game was not like, typically, North Central was just blowing guys out. Like they would never really face any sort. Dude, this guy was like stone cold.
Absolutely.
And like obviously there were times he would get like fired up and like trying to like get the boys going, but like there was never, you couldn't see any doubt in his eyes at any point throughout that entire game. Like, he'd always, I don't know. That was my number one like green flag, if you will, from Rod. Obviously, I've texted him like a little bit, like found each other on socials and everything, but I've never really like fully like talked to him, like got to know him very well. But like, I would definitely be very confident if that guy was starting on my offense.
I'd run behind him. I would absolutely run behind him. And like you said, like his will is certainly one of those things you talk about, the intangibles. This guy is just someone who doesn't back down from anything. You saw some clips earlier in the video. He's a very outspoken and vocal leader for that North Central squad. And it's hard to do that on a team like that where you have a lot of this talent we talk about outside of the offensive line unit. That was the unit, though, that I identified going into that game was going to be the difference maker for them, trying to take advantage maybe of that UWL defensive front, who had, by their own right, some great playmakers. They took advantage of the day, and they had, I know Sacco had a huge day on the ground. That's largely in part to these guys up front. The Remington Trophy Award winner, the first in North Central history, by the way, that's the man that we're talking about right now, who has started, at least from what I've seen on the roster and other statistics on their website, just about, I think, basically every game since stepping foot, on campus in 2019. This man has suited it up and been the man, the center position for this North Central squad. Talk about a dude that has potentially more playoff experience than any of the guys that we're talking about on this list right now, playing against really high-level competition. That has to only bolster his portfolio, if you will, his playing style, and all of that kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, and then obviously being that he's on those winning teams and all that winning experience, like playoff experience. I get it. Like guys that like Michigan or Washington or something come out of the draft, like, they have college football playoff experience, whatever, Division I, whatever. He's won 2 national championships or 3. What am I doing?
I'm going 2. I believe it's 2.
I think it was 2 also. I think it was also 2. I think you're right. You're absolutely right. And he's been to 4. Like, I don't see why this kid does not get an opportunity. I know I've said this a couple times already, but this is almost a no-brainer. Give this kid a shot. Even CFL. I think the CFL, he would absolutely perform out of his mind in the CFL. I think that'd be a really good fit for him as well. But why not give him a shot? Why not? He's the best center in Division III. He has 2 national championships. He's started every single game since he was a freshman. It's like he's, again, in other words, just consistency. That is a very underlooked characteristic, I feel like, in the draft. Because you'll see these projects, if you will, they're really flashy and the big playmaking ability, but they're not. They haven't been doing it for that long.
Best ability is
your availability.
Availability. And with offensive line as a unit, there's not a characteristic I think that is more valuable than that, right? And so when you talk about Bertoya and Thornton in their own respects, that is a really valuable piece for them. He is a 2-time national champion. The other 2 years, guess where he finished? Runner-up.
I'm not surprised.
Played in the damn thing 4 years.
2, maybe 3. I didn't really.
That's incredible.
I thought that was honestly a rhetorical question. Honestly.
Yeah, no, that's the loss obviously this last year to Cortland, and then in 2021 to Mary Hardin Baylor. So, man, he probably would have been in the 5th if we didn't have the COVID year.
Yeah, I don't see. You're 100% right. It's would Jordan have won 8 finals if he played those 2 years?
Yeah.
Let's say for full years, because he lost in '95, but he didn't play. He played 8 games before that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Dude. Well, we can move on to our last guy that we wanted to highlight here, and that being Wayne Ruby. Talk about a guy we mentioned the quarterback earlier, and Plunk certainly had a lot to do with his success, but Ruby is a guy that has a lot of that flashy playmaking ability. He certainly has been a deep threat for that squad, and I don't know if maybe that's where he shines the most, but they've certainly taken advantage of that. What have you seen from Quick Six Wayne? That's the pretty sure that's the Twitter handle there.
Yeah, I think Quick Six is the perfect way to. That usually perfect. The kid is just talk about shifty. Oh my god, dude! Again, I didn't have the privilege to have access to Mount Union's film, but I've obviously seen clips of this kid play. Wow. Obviously he's a little bit like smaller than like maybe your typical NFL receiver or whatever. But again, I don't think size is necessarily a deal breaker. I really don't. And like this, like when you were that good for that long at that kind of school, it's like, I mean, there's been a lot of there's some pretty big names on Mount Union. Obviously, you got Nick Sirianni, who's the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a lot of NFL connections from Mount Union, and I think in some ways, I think there's some advantages from coming from a school like that with that many connections. So like, I mean, you just never know. Obviously, we've talked about two North Central guys and two Mount Union guys already. Two pretty prominent programs that can, sometimes a name can help you out a little bit. But I'm not saying that he's not deserving of going to the NFL just because he's at Mount Union. Of course not. His kid is unbelievable. I mean, just look at the numbers. If you have any doubts about this kid, and obviously the film doesn't lie either. But I think there's not a lot of downside to giving this kid a shot. There's nothing but opportunities when it comes to what this kid can do on a football field. I mean, it's endless. You can put you have to give him a jet sweep, throw him a bubble for a heat. It's like, I mean, there's not many guys that can run with this kid either. I mean, I wonder what his 40 is. Do you have any idea?
What's that?
Do you have any idea what his 40 is?
No, off the top of my head, I do not. No, I know it's fast enough.
Mm.
Yeah, and talk about and I got some highlights going right now. A lot of these are not Wayne, but I couldn't find like a strict highlight of just him there, at least on the YouTubes. And I don't do a whole lot of film combing, so that was not it. There is Quick Six in the back of the end zone doing what he does best. Listed at 6'1", 190, and not terrible, so right? Really not bad.
I grossly underestimated that.
Yeah, no, but like you said, it's not something that stands out about his game. I don't think stature-wise. When you talked about Hardy earlier on, I think that was much more noticeable in his play style, and that could be a good or a bad thing because a team might look at that and say, well, yeah, maybe you're able to abuse that size against this kind of competition. Guess what? In the NFL, everyone's big and everyone's fast as shit. So who knows, right? It's all in the eyes of the beholder, the GM, the scouting director, whatever it is, right?
100%.
But that's all kind of what we got right now. Like you said earlier, though, if there are other guys that you think need to be added to this list, one, you're probably right, and two, let us know, comment on something, shoot us a message, whatever it is. We'd love to talk about them. That's what we get on here and do, and I enjoy it. So that's kind of what I wanted to leave us off with, but we can touch on the draft a little bit. I'm hearing that Bears might trade back not once but twice, Jim. What do we think about that?
It is exactly what I was going to talk about. So, obviously, like, Caleb Williams, generational talent. Personally, as of right now today, I want the Bears to take Caleb Williams. Like, full disclosure, okay. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I really am.
Is that because you unfollowed the Bears on Instagram?
No.
Deal breaker.
And like Justin Fields said, just because you're not following someone on Instagram doesn't mean you don't mess with.
It's dumb anyways, dude.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's Instagram. Who cares? You know what I mean? But like, I can't pass up the opportunity of getting Caleb Williams. I just can't. And I love Fields. I have a jersey. Like, it just sucks. But like, man, oh man. But anyway, if they don't do that, I wouldn't be like totally distraught either because you still have Justin Fields. You trade the first pick for the second overall pick, and you get like a first, a second, and like, I don't know, maybe a decent defensive weapon. Like, look at the package they got for the first pick last year. They got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and DJ Moore.
Yeah.
And this first pick is worth way more than it was last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then you trade the second overall pick for the third overall pick, take Marvin Harrison at 3, and then you have like 3 firsts next year, 2 more firsts in this coming round. So you have the 3, did you say Marvin Harrison? You have 9 still waiting for you right there. Who's to say you can't trade up from 9 and go up? Like, what do you going to do with the 9 pick? Like, the Bears have so much draft capital, and like, I know I'm a Bears fan, like whatever. I just had so many like thoughts going through my mind because there's just so much that can happen with this draft. And like, not to mention, I also have like a ton of money in free agency too.
Yeah, so, that's gonna be interesting. Is what they do with all that. But I'm excited, dude, and it being in Detroit too is gonna be pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be awesome. We're about to run out of time on our Zoom meeting because I refuse to pay for a premium subscription. So
How much time do we have left? Like, I have one question for you. Do we have enough
go
time
for
a
it.
question?
Go for it.
Would you have gone for it on fourth down?
Yes.
Both times.
Yes.
I know. And like, it's easy to look back on like, dude, just catch the ball.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's what got you there. Don't abandon it in that moment, right?
Yeah, he took a lot of heat for that, but
Double-edged sword.
Like, they were the best fourth down team in the NFL. Like,
and you know what? He took heat from that, but it was all from external. It wasn't his guys, right? Much rather have that if you're him than have the guys second guessing your decisions, right?
Exactly. You know, if the team has you.
Just my 2 cents, my 4 cents, whatever it is.
You were 100%. I was just curious. Like,
no, I'm with you.
Like a while ago, but I kind of
understand. I'm with you. But thank you, Jim. It's been fun, brother. I'll see you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.